IVM.
Welcome to All Things Policy, a daily podcast by the Takshashila Institution. We are a bunch of policy nerds based in Bengaluru, and we like bringing fresh perspectives to Indian affairs and Indian perspectives to global affairs. So grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and join us for today's chat.
Hi everyone, welcome to yet another episode of All Things Policy. I'm Shreya Ramakrishnan, a program manager at the Takshashila Institution, and today I'm going to be in conversation with Dr. Y. Nityanandam, who heads the geospatial research at the Takshashila Institution. So Nitya, today for this podcast, let's talk about your latest research article that's published in the Geospatial Bulletin dated March 12th, which explores new recent developments of border settlements along the disputed India-China border. So can you give us an overview of this latest piece, particularly its focus on the Indo-China border settlements?
Hi Shreya, it's pleasure to be on your discussion again. Today we are going to, as you said, we'll be talking about the two border settlements, which is located on the contested India-China border. We have studied it from the satellite imageries, which are captured during November and December 2023. This is part of our ongoing research on mapping border settlements. Eventually, we try to map the settlements which are located at a distance of 100 kilometers from the Arunachal Pradesh border, and we have mapped significantly, and we have mapped approximately 35 plus border settlements which are bigger in size, and there are many small settlements as well. But then in this short study, we have covered two critical things, because these are the two settlements which are located at a very close distance from the borderline provided by India.
So to begin with one rather basic question, why do we refer to this as border settlements and not border villages?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, Shreya. It has been called as a border village, if you notice in many of the document. But then here across our studies and throughout the entire document, we have called it as border settlement. For a reason, it has been documented once in an article stating that calling it as a border village, because China is planning to establish approximately 628 border villages in India-China border. A lot of them comes along the borders of Arunachal Pradesh. Now, if we start calling them as border village, in fact, China is calling it as Jiakong human settlement and Jiakong villages. If we call it similar to that as a village, then this will go in records over a period of time, because these are some of the settlements established in contested territories. Instead, if we call it as a village in records and maps, it will record as a village where human population exists naturally over a period of time. And thereafter, in future, it is easier for them to climb these territories and say we have been residing in these villages where human population has been put up in this place for a very long time, and it can be used as a very important tool for negotiation. So for this reason, we try to call this as settlements where the people are actually forced, and to some extent, sometimes we don't know whether people are living there or it's just in houses which are built over there. So that's the reason it's been called as border settlement, and China is extensively planning to build such settlements on the critical areas, because it can give them a couple of advantages. The one is they can make sure that the civilians are also there, and parallelly they can use it for keeping their soldiers as well.
Yeah, it's so interesting how over time this kind of rhetoric can so easily can come into play. I was also wondering if you can give us some background about the issue between India and China.
Yeah, we have this border issue with China, you can say aggressively after independence, and especially in 1950s, right? So there are a lot of areas which are under dispute. So it can be a small pocket. You might have heard words like Doklam, Tawang, Aksai Chin, and many places. Now, the China has been changing its position over a period of time. The recent climb, you would have seen they have been climbing the entire Arunachal Pradesh, which is part of India, as their territory in recent climbs. So this is one step. They have been doing it regularly wherever they have a border issue with an adjacent country, whether it is with Mongolia, whether it is with Russia. They have established these border villages, and later they said our presence in this place has been exist for a long time, as I said before, and then they climbed this area. Now, especially on India-China border, and many of the places are even not explored by people from both the countries regularly. You can see the forces do, they can do this patrolling on these areas, but then it's not regularly occupied by any of this country. So what they are trying to do right now is to occupy these places and to keep their permanent presence on these areas. For that, the first step to be done is to construct roads in order to get access to these places. So once the roads are constructed, then they try to build these settlements and then try to leverage resources around them, and then it will also help them to increase their presence in the region. So they can also, according to them, they can also expand their tourism. They can build communities with multiple minority groups, and also they can help their own people, the armed forces, to get support from this kind of settlements in future if and when the conflict arises.
As you speak, I can relate just thinking about the satellite imagery in your research article. And so over time, you can see how that one area has changed and the environment around it also has changed. And that would be very interesting for all listeners also to refer to as they listen to this podcast or immediately after. My next question is also about, changes in Tibet with regards to this issue. Please shed some light on that.
Yeah, Tibet has been in the hot topic between India-China relationships for a very long period. Just because if the battle has to be, if there is a battle between India and China, it has to be on Tibet, right? So the Tibet area predominantly was under the control of the Buddhist monarchs, which are predominantly dispersed over the region. But then, if you look at the recent days, it has been taken over by China, and the Chinese presence has been increased over a period of time in this region. Especially, it is now being called as officially part of China, and though it is Tibet Autonomous Region in general. So now the Chinese have been expanding their presence in Tibet, and they are trying to occupy places where Tibetan minorities exist, and also they are increasing their military presence in the region. They're increasing their settlements. They are constructing huge dams, and they're making big infrastructure projects in this region in order to make their presence. One of that is like they try to leverage the resources available here. That's how they used to say. On the other hand, it is an area which is adjacent to India's border, so they are trying to make their presence in order to get a better hold compared to India on this region. So they have been developing the military infrastructure, especially the bigger airstrips are made. We have discussed in our previous podcast and different articles in our newsletter. Their military infrastructures, other than airports, includes the surface to air missile sites, and a lot of other critical infrastructure related to PLA's army is also put up in different parts of the Tibet. So these are all collectively poses a threat to us, as it is very close to our border, and that is why the developments in Tibet has been closely looked at in recent years, because it's very important for us.
Following up on that, can you tell us a little bit about the nature of our concern in this issue and these recent developments of border settlements and just the history of how this has all played out in similar and different situations in the past?
So it is important for us, especially if we talk about an area which we have studied in our article called Zone B also. So the Zone B is Migutan area, which is on the north of the borderline, which is given by Survey of India to demarcate India and China, and it is very close. It is, let's say, 500 meters from the border. And you also have another place called Longju, which is 500 meters south of the borderline inside the Indian territory. So this is one of an example of how this the settlements plays a crucial role in the past. Like once it has started as a small Chinese village, and then they started building their houses on this area, which are dual purpose and with other infrastructures. And these settlements now are expanding over a period of time. So when you look at it, the expansion is keep on continuing along the valley, and it may likely to go further because the roads are extended up to close to 7-8 kilometers inside our borderline. So these are our challenges, and once the settlements are established, we can expect further developments on this line. So of course it's a concern for us, because relief sometimes restrict our patrolling on these areas, because some of these areas are not patrolled. It's difficult to patrol, I would say, for us, and people takes advantage out of it and try to establish the settlements on those critical areas.
Stay tuned to All Things Policy. We'll be right back after a short commercial break.
So, as per your research article, you detail out two zones, right? Zone A and Zone B. Can you give us some details about these findings that you elaborated in the article?
Yeah, I can. So there's a Zone A and Zone B, which are marked in my article, and especially the Zone A, which is further north east of this Arunachal Pradesh. This is part of our, as I said, this is part of our larger study in which we have looked at the border settlements which are established along the 4 districts of Arunachal Pradesh, starting from Tawang. And then we have noticed these 2 critical settlements which are on the border. In fact, the Zone A is something where it is not reported anywhere and it is fresh, whereas Zone B is something is been in dispute since 1950s, that I just said. It is a place called Migutan, and further developments on Longzhou and Lowa villages. Now the Zone A, if I need, the Zone A is a place where it's on the slopes of a mountain, and then you can see in before 2023, this place was having just a barren land. Once it was a barren land with 2 tents, and now you can see the place has close to 100 dual-purpose houses which are coming up. So this kind of transformation has just started in the middle of June, and it just happened in very short. This kind of transformation happened in a very short time in 2023. Though the settlements are yet to be completed, but you can say it is still in the final stage, but it can be completed likely to be in 2024. So this is on the banks of River Milan. This is about Zone A. And the Zone B is located on another area called Migutin, as I said, Migutin, Longju, and Loa. But these areas are places where the dispute exists for a very long time, and this is on the contested border between India and China. Now, Migutin is little inside their territory. However, you can see the developments in Migutin. The number of dual purpose houses has increased in recent times, especially after June 2022. It has almost become double. And then you can see the total area of this entire settlement is about 0.86 square kilometer. This includes both houses and military camps. And whereas if you go further, little down south to Longju, it has it's been there. There's a military structure. It's been there for a while, since you can say 2019. But then this settlement, which we can identify, which we have identified in recent times, have come up in 2023, and it looks like another military settlement or military complex which is adjacent to the previous one. Further going south from there, we have Lowa village, which was established in 2020 with close to 100 houses. And this is in the intersection of two rivers. And this village, the dual purpose village or settlement, you can say, it has been there for a while, and there's not much of changes in the recent times because there's not much of places also. But the development can likely to continue further down south. That is concerned because the roads are built and the other clearing activities are continuing on this area. So the roads are going up to 8 kilometers. So we can expect development until then in future.
So, as I understand it, Zone A is a newly discovered border settlement, whereas Zone B has been around for a while. And what are some larger implications for? I know you've spoken about new roads and infrastructure that's coming around the environment, but if we zoom out, what are some larger implications of this new development?
See, right now the implications are unknown because it appears to be the dual purpose houses. When I repeatedly call this as dual purpose houses, because these are not just houses which will be occupied by the civilians. Because at this moment, we are not sure how many people are residing, who are they, local people, are they forced to migrate to these places. But the published articles also indicates the people from other parts of Tibet and people from other provinces are also forced or sometimes incentivized to move to this border areas, and they have given a huge money every month to be residing over this area. Because when you look at the opportunity, when you look at the livelihood for people around this areas, which are limited, you can see not much of agricultural activities happening around. You didn't you may not able to find many of other opportunities to work in this areas. But then once people are asked to live in this area, and if they're paid for it, so people likely to settle over this region. Further, they may likely to create opportunities for them in this region. So the larger implication could be, once people are here, then they may be used as a force against us in future. One. Second, there will be started occupying other areas further down on these lines. So that is a larger fear at this moment. But then there is not much of military presence on these two border settlements. So given that fact, it was just going to be used as a dual purpose village instead of a military base.
Right, that's interesting. So what is India's response to this issue?
Okay, in response to Chinese border settlement initiatives, India has also started, strengthening their border villages and investing huge money on developing, border structures, especially infrastructure such as roads and different projects, and for the welfare of people. A lot of initiatives are taken. We should remember here there's a difference between the border settlements on the other side and this side, because other side the settlements are not exist naturally, and China is constructing it in order to make the people presence on this area, and they are doing many ways to expand their presence. Whereas on our side, the presence are mostly exist for a very long time, and naturally it has been there. But we are trying to strengthen our infrastructure, and we are trying to strengthen our presence over there. There's a difference is one is establishing, the other one is strengthening their presence in the region. So we have roads and we have things, but then we are expanding it, making it and removing barriers for people to access from place to place A to B, and especially removing barrier for our forces to engage actively on these areas.
So would you say this is an area of research that you will be revisiting as the time goes by, just because there is so much happening on both sides in response to each other?
Yes. So, we have only covered the border along the 4 districts of Arunachal Pradesh so far, and remaining 4 districts on the border will be studying subsequently. It is part of our ongoing research. And again, we have uncovered only 2 among the study we have, 2 places among the places we have studied in the first part. The other report, which covers 33 plus places, will be released soon, so that people can understand how the border settlements are mapped and how it is figured out using remote sensing, and how far it is spread out in Tibet, and how it looks like, how military structure looks like, how a civilian structure looks like. All this we can able to read from the subsequent publication. People can stay tuned to our Takshashila Geospatial Bulletin on the Substack platform, which is for free, but then they get real updates on this, further research on this line.
This sounds like a series to watch out for and await every time, new improvements come up. This wraps up our discussion for today, Nitya. Thank you so much for giving us more insight on the background behind the research and the parties involved. Now listeners can read your article with more information and background, and so much of this is happening so far away from all of us, and this is definitely a new area of information for me. So thank you, Nitya, and thank you listeners for joining in, and see you next time.
Thank you, Shreya, for hosting today's discussion, and we hope the listeners gets a new insight. Sometimes listeners on far away from the border feel this topic is not of importance to us, but then once if you have to look at the national interest altogether, this topic is very much vital for everyone from different parts of the country as well. Thank you everyone for listening, and please do stay tuned to Takshashila Geospatial Bulletin. Thank you.
If you liked our show, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can tune into them on the IVM Podcast app, ivmpodcast.com, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also follow IVM on social media. The handle is @IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And hey, if you'd like to dive into Takshashila's research on technology, strategy, and economic affairs, check us out at our Twitter handle @TakshashilaINST or our website takshashila.org.in.